Yahweh Shemi Shah, this brother y'all with the servants, right? Back at it again with another video through the spirit, right? So today we going into you still celebrating Christmas in 2025, right? That's a question. Are you still celebrating Christmas in 2025? And this message to the so-called Black, Hispanics, Native Americans which will be God chosen people, the Israelites. And the question to them is, are you still celebrating Christmas? Right? Is you still having put buying presents, right, for your children, putting it under a tree and saying we celebrate Christmas, right? You got dang candy canes, ornaments dressed around your tree, right? You got stocking stuffers and all that going on. Are you still doing that in 2025? In the age of information, where all things, I mean, not all things, but where there's a lot of information out here to understand the things that you're doing, the things that you're celebrating, are they for the Lord or is it against the Lord? So today we're going to get into, well, if you still celebrate in 2025, do you understand, right, these things are against the Most High, right? The Most High is not dealing with this, right? So we're going to go through a couple precepts. We're going to get a little history, right? So I want to start off with this. I want to start off with Colossians chapter 2. All right, Colossians chapter 2 and verse 8. All right, book of let me make some screen sharing. All right, Colossians 2 and 8. All right, so this is the book of Colossians chapter 2 and verse number 8. It says, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. So when we think about it, right, Christmas is a tradition of man, right? The Lord never ordained for his people to follow Christmas or participate in Christmas. It's not about Jesus, because his birthday was not December 25th. Everybody knows that, right? You can just Google it. Everybody knows this, right? It's the cat is out the back, right? So when we look at this tradition of man, we see that when you go through the history behind Christmas, you soon understand that this is not after Christ. So for those people that say I'm a Christian or I'm a follower of Christ, well, if you're a follower of Christ, why are you not doing the things that Christ did? Christ never kept Christmas. He never celebrated Christmas. If anything, Christ is against Christmas, right? The Lord is against Christmas because he understands that it's rooted in paganism, right? There's nothing biblical about Christmas being anything within the realms of righteousness, right? With anything, when it comes to Christmas, it falls under the category of things that is wicked, right? Against the Most High God, idolatry. That's the umbrella that Christmas falls under. So in 2025, and you're still keeping Christmas, this is for you, brothers and sisters. You got to repent, right? You got to repent because you're really going off through the Spirit, right? And if you, and shame on you, brothers and sisters, that's in the truth. And you say, well, I ain't celebrating Christmas. I'm just headed to the Christmas party. I'm just headed to hang out, kick with the friends, right? With the family members. Because they've been asking me in a group chat, am I coming? And it's just about family. The family getting together. No, it's about the family getting together in idolatry. And shame on you parents that say, well, I really don't do Christmas. It's really just for the kids. Well, hey, do you love your kids more than you love the Most High? Right, so let's get them another precept. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20 verse 2. It says this: thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. You can't, and that's what our people doing. They're following the rest of the world, the whole world at this time, right now, right? And all the heathens, even the right, you got Chinese people, they even keeping Christmas now. They weren't even dealing with that at one point in time. Now they doing it, right? You got everybody around the world keeping this wicked paganistic holiday. You're not supposed to follow them. If you're saying, right, that you love God and you want to be obedient to God, then you need to do what's right in the sight of the Most High God, and that is not participating in Christmas because it's a wicked holiday, right? So again, now let's get another precept, right? So we can't follow multitude, do evil, right? We can't be caught up, right, following traditions of men after the rudiments of the world, because the world participates in Christmas. But the Christ, Yahushua, he did not keep Christmas. He did not celebrate Christmas, right? He don't condone Christmas, right? It's wicked, right? I'm going to get another precept. Let's go to the book of Acts, right? The book of Acts, chapter 5. And let's go to 29, right? Acts 5 and 29. Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than man. So when it comes down to it, and you saying, okay, you participate in Christmas and all this thing, who are you going to obey? Right? The word of God or the traditions of man? The tradition, the family tradition with your grandma, your auntie, your uncles, your grandpapa, and all y'all sitting around a Christmas tree talking about Merry Christmas, right? Madness. The Lord's not dealing with that, right? It's crazy. So we're gonna get into some scriptures and some history. So we cover a couple scriptures. So now we're gonna get a little history going to what Christmas really is and what it really is rooted into. Okay. So before we start off this, matter of fact, let's go this. We're gonna start here, right? And you can just really just Google is your best friend. Yes, it says it says yes, some traditions link the Babylonian god Tammuz to December 25th as a pagan fertility sun god celebrated at the winter solstice, a date later Christianized as Christmas to honor the sun instead of the sun. Well, when does the Lord say you can take something and say, hey, we're going to create this day. We're going to take a day that's rooted in paganism and we're going to Christianize it? That has nothing to do with Christ. That is madness. We're going to say, okay, this day is this day was rooted in idolatry, right? And serving Tammuz, right? But we're going to change it and we're going to make it a day we're going to honor our the sun, Christ. Madness. That is pure madness, right? And matter of fact, let's go to this. Let's go to this real fast. Because you gotta see the matter. Let's get this precept in the book of Job. Job chapter 9. So can you take something, right? Can you take something that is deemed unclean? Can you take something that is deemed unclean and make it clean yourself? Right? Can you do that according to the scriptures? Let's find out. Right? Can you make something that's unclean, right, and make it clean? We're gonna find out, right? We're gonna find out, because scriptures will tell you, right, is it possible or not? And that's what the thing is. When it comes to anything in life that you do, right, anything that you do, you should always search to the scriptures for an answer, right? You should always search in the scriptures for an answer. So let's go to Job chapter 14 and verse 4, and let's get the answer, right? It says this: who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. So nobody can take something, right, that's unclean and make it clean. It just can't happen like that. And this is what you had happen pertaining to Christmas. Tammuz, these people were worshiping Tammuz, right? And Tammuz is Nimrod, but we're gonna get into that. Right? We're gonna get into that. So they're worshiping Nimrod, and then next thing you know, they fast forward, they say, okay, this day was rooted in idolatry, which is against the commandments of God, right? Let's go to that real fast so we can see how we can understand. Because one would say, well, how is that wicked, right? So we're going to go to the law and we're going to show you that we can't serve no other God but the Most High God. And then when you understand that, then when you see that this day is rooted in sin, you can't take a day that's rooted in sin, right? Decorated in sin and say, okay, now I'll make it holy, right? You can't do that. It's madness. Okay, so let's go to the law, right? Let's go to the law. We understand, right, after reading this passage, that you can't take something that's unclean and make it clean. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, so now let's go to the law. All right, let's go to the law. It says this. This is the law. This is Exodus chapter 20 and verse 1. Right? It says this. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And who is he talking to at the time? He's talking to the Israelites, right? They just got out of Egypt, right? Moses just got them out of Egypt. And when we go into the history, we go into the scriptures, we understand that the Israelites would be, in 2025, would be the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So this message, the Lord is saying to them, he's telling them what? It says this, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Straight like that. We are commanded as a people, as a nation, to not have other gods before thee. All right, let's keep reading. It says this, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. So when you think about the actual concept of a Christmas tree, right? You have a Christmas tree, you got the presents under the tree. What's the first thing you do when you go pick up a present? You bow down. It's a whole ritual process. You have to either bend the knee or you have to bend your back. And that's a process of bowing down. And that's on the simplest level. It's a whole ritual process. It's something they've been doing for years and centuries. Bowing down to Nimrod, bowing down to Tammuz. But in present day 2025, they just slapped a new name on it, call it Christmas. But it's the same thing. But here in the law, the Lord telling you we can't do such things. Okay? You got people out here, they ain't even got their bills paid. They on the verge of being evicted. They talking about, oh, my kids got a good crib though. Sounds so insane. Your car note due, but you got a whole house full of presents. Talking about, so we gonna have a good Christmas this year. That's crazy. That is crazy, insane. You penny pinching, barely got gas in your gas tank, but you finna keep some Christmas. But you finna celebrate Christmas, right? It makes no sense, right? So let's keep pushing, right? Let's keep pushing. So now let's go back to this, right? So it says this. Though many scholars debate the direct historical evidence for this specific connection, pointing to the early Christian calculations for the date, Tammuz was a Mesopotamian god of vegetation and renewal. So this was a god, right? A Mesopotamian god, right? And often associated with Ishtar. Why was Tammuz always associated with Ishtar? Who is Ishtar? Right, so we're gonna get in who is Ishtar, right? And we're gonna get into who Tammuz is, right? And it's so simple. So we're gonna keep reading. Oh, my bad. We're gonna keep reading. It says this: pagan festival Tammuz, a god of fertility, was celebrated around the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year when the sun's return new light was significant. Semiramis, and keep in mind this name. So Semiramis and Nimrod, right? And some myths, Tammuz was the son of the goddess Semiramis and of the king Nimrod, who were worshipped as divine figures, with Tammuz seen in reincarnation as Nimrod, the sun god. So when we go into back to what it just said, right? It says they was worshiping the sun god back in right there. It said they're worshiping the sun god, right? They're worshiping the sun god. Nimrod was seen as the sun god. So when you make the connection, they was worshiping Nimrod. So when did Nimrod come into the play? All right, now we got to go back to the scriptures. All right, when did Nimrod come into play? All right, let's get it. Let's go to the book of Genesis. All right, the book of Genesis. And we're going to go to Genesis chapter 10 and verse 8, right? So now this is the time after Noah, right? After the flood happened, Noah had 3 sons, right? He had Shem, he had Japheth, and he had Ham, right? So now you're going into the descendants of Ham, right? We're going to the descendants of Ham. So it says this, and the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. Then the sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, and Sabta, and Ramah, and Sabteca. And the sons of Ramah, Shabah, and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. So it says Cush begat Nimrod. So Cush was the son of Ham, right? So Nimrod was a descendant of Ham. That's who Nimrod is a descendant of. So that's what lineage he come from. But we date back where the Israelites come from. We come from the lineage of Shem. That's who we come from. So your Ethiopians and things like that, and the Egyptians, not the Arab Egyptians, but the true ancient Egyptians, they was descendants of Ham, right? It says he was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it was says, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord, in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, aka Babylon. So this is the first Babylon. That's why when you have Nebuchadnezzar being mentioned later in the Bible, it's called Babylon as well, but that's called the what? The Neo-Babylon period, meaning the new Babylon. So you got to date back to the ancient Babylon. Nimrod was king over ancient Babylon, or the first Babylon, right? So it says this. It says the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech, right? Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar, right? So let's go to this, all right? Let's go to this. So we talking about him. We talk about his city Babel, right? Let's go to this. All right? I'm sure y'all remember this story in the Bible, right? This all going into Nimrod, right? It says universal language, Babel, confusion, right? And this is during the time of Nimrod. This is his whole get up, right? And the whole earth was a one language, right? And of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, go, let us make brick, burn them thoroughly. They had brick of stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, go, let us build us a city and a tower, right? Whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, right? So this is man trying to put themselves on a high pedestal. This is man trying to lift themselves up. This is man trying to be as the Lord, right? They said, let us build us, reach up to heaven, and let us make us a name. Not let us serve the Most High, the God of heaven. I mean, the God of heaven, the one that created the heavens. Let us build us a tower and let us make ourselves a name. So they're trying to make themselves as God, right? Lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they all have one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go, let us down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth. They left off to build the city. Therefore the name is called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. So Babel, meaning Babylon, that's where you get Babylon from. It stems from the word Babel, meaning confusion, right? So Babylon is what? Chiefly a city of confusion, right? So that's the background. Going into Nimrod, his city Babel, right? Babylon, a city of confusion, right? City built off idolatry, right? Pride, wickedness. Okay. So let's see further on, right? Let's see further on. All right. So let's go back to that, right? So we was talking about Semiramis and Tammuz, right? So let's fast forward to after Babylon was gone, right? After Babylon was gone, well, I say Babylon was gone, but after Nimrod was gone, these people were still worshiping Nimrod, right? They were still worshiping Nimrod and what? Semiramis, right? Because what happened was there was again, Christmas, right? But they called it something else, right? But at this time, right, they was worshiping, because they wasn't just worshiping Nimrod, they was worshiping Semiramis as well, right? So, and Semiramis was Nimrod's wife. That's who it was. So you got Nimrod's wife and you got Nimrod. That's who they've been worshiping, right? From that time on, that's who they've been worshiping. From the time that Nimrod was unalive, right? That they've been worshiping him. Right. So let's kind of get a backdrop on this real fast. Right. All right, let's go to this. Right. So let's go to this. And this is just information, right? It says this. Now, what we have here, right? You see all these different things, right? It's showing you mother and child worship, right? Babylon, Semiramis, and Nimrod, Tammuz. So we went to Nimrod, right? We talked about that, right? So let's look at this article, right? Right. So it says this. It says the right. Let's go this. It says the Bible did not say Jesus was born, right? And no one knows for certain. December 25th was chosen in the 4th century. The Romans at the time celebrated Saturnalia. So Romans celebrating Saturnalia, that stems from we're gonna go into what Saturnalia stems from, right? It says this: the end of autumn planting season, Satis meaning sowing, it was around the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, after which the day would lengthen again, and there would be more sunlight. It was therefore also the festival of Sol Invictus, the invincible sun. And who was they worshiping? What figure was symbolic for the sun? Nimrod. Nimrod was symbolic for the sun. Right, so let's jump down. Right, let's jump down. Matter of fact, I'm gonna jump down and read this right here. It says, then he brought it's going into Tammuz being the sun god. So we already talked about him being the sun god. All right. So let's go to this. Right. So we going into Nimrod. He's the sun god. Right. People was worshiping him. They trying to replace Christ with the sun god. It's just madness, confusion, right? So let's go to this. So along the way, you had Nimrod, right? Now after Nimrod, you got these two, right? And they're the same people. We're gonna go to Judges chapter 2 and verse 13. Judges 2 and 13. Let's see what we got. All right, it says Judges chapter 2 and verse 13. Right, it says this. Let me start at verse 11. It says this: and the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Baalim. So let's remember this now. right? They did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they served Baalim, right? So it's evil to serve Baalim. So anything that's dealing with Baalim or Ashtaroth or any other god, it's evil, regardless. If it ain't the Most High God, it's evil, it's wicked, and that's what our people are doing when they keep Christmas, celebrate Christmas. But let's keep reading. They forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods. So that again, it dates back to us understanding that we are the people that the Lord brought out of Egypt, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. That's why it's so important and imperative for us to not celebrate these pagan traditions, these pagan festivals, because that's all that Christmas is. It's a pagan festival. Follow other gods, of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. Right? So they provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtaroth. Right? So let's go into this. Right? Remember, they always they were worshiping Semiramis and Nimrod, right? Now at the time, right, the names all of these names shift. That's all. Because you're gonna see the name shift, but it still dates back to the same old people, Nimrod and his wife, Semiramis, right? So let's deal with this. Let's deal with Ashtaroth, right? Because we kind of talked about Nimrod. Let's deal with Ashtaroth, right? Let's deal with this. Right? So it says this. It says, Nick. It says Ashtaroth, right? Ashtaroth, a false goddess of Canaanite religion, usually related to fertility cults. So we talking about cults. You know what I'm saying? They like to say that, oh, you Israelites, y'all a cult. Well, those people that's keeping Christmas or participating in Christmas, they're following the religions of a Canaanite cult of fertility. Crazy, right? So it says a false goddess in the Canaanite religion. Now remember, the Canaanites stem from who? Ham, right? So you're seeing the connection. These people, this are their gods, right? So let's go to this. All right, let's get it right quick. I want to get this right quick. It says this. The pronoun of a city of Bashan, Joshua 13:12, more fully called, and I don't know that, I can't read that, but it says the horn Astartes, right? Ashtaroth Carnium, right? In which seek so-called doubtless from the temple and statues of Astarte. So this is where the Ashtaroths come from, Astarte. So now we got to figure out, well, who's Astarte? What's Astarte? Right? Astarte is a statue, right? So we know the Lord not dealing with statues, right? So let's go to Astarte. All right. Let's go to Astarte. All right. So who was Astarte? Right? Origins developed, right? It says origin developed from the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar or Inanna. So this is another god, right? It says prominent in Canaan, Phoenicia, and Egypt, was a war deity and consort of Set. So now when we leave in Egypt, when the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, they're leaving Egypt, the Lord is telling them, do not follow the ways of these other nations. Right? Do not follow the activities or the culture of these other nations. So we think about it, the descendants of Ham, this is what they did. They worshiped Ishtar. They worshiped Astarte. They had temples dedicated from Astarte, statues dedicated from Astarte, right? So it says often naked, winged, and horned with horses, chariots, lions, doves, and bees. So this is what that came from. These are the kind of statues they had, right? So let's deal with Ishtar. right? Let's deal with Ishtar. So let's go to Ishtar, right? And as you see, right, it's gonna mention, says biblical mention Ashtoreth, a deity whose worship was condemned by the Israelites, right? So we was condemned at one point in time for what? Serving these other gods. So let's go, and it's all gonna take an effect, right? Because it says you have Ashtar, right? And you said we was condemned for serving Ashtar. So before we get that, we're gonna get this, and you see right here, Jeremiah's Queen of Heaven. We're gonna see exactly how it's gonna show you in the book of Jeremiah. But before we go there, we're gonna touch on Ishtar, right? Let's go to Ishtar, right? So again, right? So it says Ishtar. Oh, so I got this. Ishtar is the powerful, multifaceted Mesopotamian goddess of love, fertility, war, and sexuality, often identified with the planet Venus, and Sumerian goddess Inanna, right? Known for her complex nature as both giver of life, fierce warrior, so forth and so forth, right? So forth and so forth, right? But don't jump down. She was a major deity in Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Babylonian cultures, dating back to what? They just changed the name, right? They came from, it was the chief things that came from Babylon, that Babylonian period was what? Nimrod and Semiramis, right? So Semiramis is Ashtar. It's Ishtar. Semiramis is Ashtaroth, right? They're all the one and the same. They just have different names. As these different nations come about, they slap different names on these goddesses and goddesses, right? The Egyptians might have called it something different, right? The Akkadians might have called something different. The Sumerians might have called it something different, but they all the same thing. Just like now in 2025, when you have people right now saying, oh, it's Christmas. It's the same thing. You're still worshiping the Semiramis and Nimrod. You're still doing the same thing. It has not changed. Just the names. That's it. Right? And I'm gonna say how so cold it is. When you really think about it. This how so cold it is. They say, well, the name change, not the same thing. But how come when we tell somebody, say, yeah, I worship Jesus, but his name Yahweh Shai. They still the same person, or Yeshua. They still the same person. Yahweh. It's still the same thing. And it's just like it runs with the names of the Lord, right? It's the same thing with these things, with these idols, right? This idolatry. These pagan deities. Right? So now let's jump down. It says worship across. It said widespread cult. It was a widespread cult. That's what this is. All these people that's out there celebrating Christmas are part of a widespread cult. That's what it is. Worship across Mesopotamia, Sumer, Akkad, Assyria, Babylonia for thousands of years, and still it said thousands of years. So still in 2025, they still doing the same thing with major temples in cities like Uruk, Nineveh, and Babylon. Name Ishtar is Akkadian, the early Sumerian equivalent of Inanna, meaning Lady of Heaven. Now, remember we was talking about the Queen of Heaven, the Lady of Heaven, same thing. The Queen of Heaven and the Lady of Heaven is the same thing. So now let's go to this right here. Jeremiah 7, right? Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 7. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to deal with this Queen of Heaven, right? So we went to the book of, before we go there, right? Matter of fact, we good on Ashtaroth and Baal. So let's go, because I was gonna double back on them, but we gonna keep it pushing, right? Cause I had something else on them, but we gonna go ahead and we gonna make it shake with Jeremiah chapter 7. So Jeremiah chapter 7, right? And we're gonna go to verse 18. So check this out, guys. Right? It says the children, all right. It says the children. Now this going into what? This going into what? Let's look at this title. Message at the temple of the gate. Right? Message that, so this is a message to the Israelites. Right? It's a message to the Israelites. So let's see what it says. Let's jump down and let's go, because we got the context. It's a message to the Israelites, right? It says this: the children gather wood, and the fires kindle the fire, and the woman knead their dough. They to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. So now we're mentioning the Queen of Heaven. But who's the Queen of Heaven? The Queen of Heaven is the Lady of Heaven. Who's the Lady of Heaven? The Lady of Heaven is Ishtar. So who is Ishtar? Ishtar is Ashtaroth. So who is Ashtaroth? Semiramis. So what the thing is, our people are all have been doing is been worshiping the same God, just with a different name. And now y'all got Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus. Now that's the new name for it. Hey, baby, look what Santa Claus got you. And you got Negroes, right? Negroes, because that's what they acting, right? With a whole Christmas suit on, right? Christmas suit on, stuffing cotton in his shirt, right? Got a big little fake belly, a crazy looking gray beard, talking about a black Santa. You really see our people lost their mind. When in the Bible do you hear any of our forefathers talking about a black Santa? When was John the Baptist talking about a black Santa? When was Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorant calls Jesus, talking about a black Santa? When was Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah? When did any of them talking about a dang black Santa, man? Having a Christmas tree in their house, talking about jingle bells, right? Pure, unadulterated madness, right? Our people truly have been detached from our heritage. But guess what? There's more. So we're going to see more of them doing things pertaining to worshiping these other gods. So we're going to fast forward to this chapter. So we seen where it mentioned the Queen of Heaven, right? So check this out. It says a satire on idolatry, right? So it says this: hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. So we looking at the house of Israel, right? Which would be the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? Boom. Okay. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. So the Lord is telling us not to learn the ways of the heathen. But what have we done? We have did nothing but done the very opposite. We have adopted the ways of paganism. We have adopted the ways of worshiping these other gods of these other nations that was never given to us as a people, right? It says, for the customs of the people are vain. One cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands, the workman up with an axe. So let's see. Let's keep going. They deck it with silver and with gold. So if you got a tree, you cut it down and you deck it with silver and gold. Let's see what this looks like. Let's see what this looks like. Let's see what this. Let's get a visual on this. Right? Let's get a visual. Let's get a visual on this scripture that Jeremiah is telling our people. It's telling this, and it started off the title of it was satire, right? Idolatry. So check this out, right? Christmas tree right here. Matter of fact, with silver and we probably got one with silver and gold ornaments. We get that right there. Show y'all exactly what Jeremiah was talking about. Let me see. Bam. There you go. All these is visual. This is what Jeremiah describing. Now, back then, they didn't have this plastic tree, right? They didn't have this plastic, whatever kind of fake tree. They cut down real trees. And some people still do that. Cut down real trees. Some people still do that, right? They cut down real trees. They got fake trees. The same thing, whether it's real or fake, it's still the practice of that. So this is what we're seeing. Look at this. This is what Jeremiah is describing. And this is the idolatry and the wickedness that the Israelites was doing. And the Lord is telling them, this is wrong. This is in error. This is against the Most High God, right? So let's go back to Jeremiah. Now we got the visual in our head of what Jeremiah is talking about, right? So it says this. I'm going to read it again. For the custom of the people are vain. For one cut off a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not. Because that's how they used to do it, right? You know, now they got a little thing. It's like a little 3 little branch thing that you put down and you put a tree inside of it. That's how they do it now. But back then, so they had to keep it from moving. So they had to nail it down. They had to nail the tree down, right? Same thing. And this is what our people doing. These things is contrary to the Most High God, right? So let's go into something. Let's go into this. Okay. Synchronism. Let's go to synchronism. That's what it is. Syncretism. That's what it is. Syncretism. So let's go to syncretism. What is syncretism? So when we think about syncretism, I'm gonna show you what syncretism is. I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this right here, and I'm gonna show y'all. Right? Yes, some traditions link. I'm gonna read this again. I read this earlier, but we're gonna show you what this is called. What they did with Christians. Not even say Christians, because you can't even call that's not even true Christian. But what these so-called Christians are doing now, and talking about, it's about Jesus. It's about his birthday. That's what y'all do. That's what y'all say now. Right? Let's see what that's called. Yes, some traditions link the Babylonian god Tammuz to December 25th as a pagan fertility sun god celebrated at the winter solstice. A day later, Christianized as Christmas to honor the sun instead of the sun. Now, what do we call that? That is called syncretism. So let's go and see what syncretism is, right? Let's go with syncretism is. So this is syncretism. It says the amalgamation or attempted amalgamation of different religions, cultures, or schools of thought. Interfaith so it says the merging of different inflection varieties of a word during a development of a language. So basically what it's saying in all these many words, syncretism is the merging of religions, languages, and all that. So what these so-called Christians did was they committed syncretism, where they had the process of syncretism where they merged paganism and Christianity. That's what you get Christian from, syncretism, right? That's exactly what you get that from, right? But the Lord is not dealing with syncretism, right? Let's get let me get another. Let's go this. I like this. We're gonna read some more on syncretism, right? And then you see the word sing as in sync. When you get that new phone, right? You get that new phone, right? You gotta say you got a Android or whatever. It say, do you want to sync your contacts? It actually you want to sync your contacts. Or when somebody say, hey man, we in sync, we intertwined together. I'm bringing this, and I'm gonna bring this from this place, and I'm gonna put it here in this place. That's where it come from. Syncretism come from syncing. The word sync, right? So before I get that, for those that might say, huh? What do you mean? So you see it's syncretism, right? So let's go to the word sync. And we're seeing this. Sync. You're gonna get this before I go into this thing. All right. Sync definition. So sync meaning, this is what it means. Synchronization, because sync goes into synchronization, right? Meaning what? Oh, let's get it. Let's get this right quick. It says synchronization, an effect like a stereo speaker slightly out of sync, harmony, accord, in sync with today's fashions, to synchronize, right? To bring together. But we're not commanded. We never was commanded to bring the laws of God into and mix them with the ways of the heathen. That is pure wickedness. And that's what you got going on. So now we're going to get into this. Syncretism is the combining or merging of various distinct beliefs or schools of thought. Syncretism is when certain elements, features, and components of a religion are incorporated and absorbed into another religion or faith. It directs some sort of difference in both religions. So it says it directs some sort of this is crazy. We can't take the Bible and say, okay, we're going to incorporate this into paganism. But that's exactly what people did when they created Christmas. That's exactly what happened. That is syncretism. The Lord is not dealing with syncretism. It says syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in theology and mythology of religion, thus inserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. This is not biblical at all. Right? Let's go to this. All right, let's go to this. All right, Isaiah 34. Let's go to this right quick. This precept right quick. All right, let's get this precept right quick. It says this. It says, seek ye out the book of the Lord and read. None of these shall fail. None shall want her mate. So we not commanded to add anything to the scriptures, to add any madness or ideology to the scriptures. Right? For my mouth had commanded, and his spirit it have gathered them. Right? So when we think about the Bible in its entirety, it doesn't need to be mixed with paganism. Right? It doesn't need to be mixed. Let's get something else. Let's see how the Lord feels about mixing. He don't even like fabrics to be mixed. Right? He don't like fabrics to be mixed. He don't like cattle to be mixed. Right? Even crops, right? Was not supposed to be mixed. But now you got people fast forward in 2025, they mixing ideologies. They mixing doctrine. All right, let's go to Mark chapter 2. Let me go to this. Mark chapter 2 and verse, let me go Matthew first. Matthew 9 and 17. Let me get this one. Right? Matthew 9 and 16. No man put a piece of new cloth into an old garment. For that which is put in to fill it up, taketh from the garment, and the rent is made worse. So you can't take an old garment and attach something new onto it. And that's exactly what's going on when you have Christians or so-called Christians taking paganism, and they're matching together talking about, oh, it's Christmas now. And they've been doing this for a long time. That's where you get your Mother's Day from, your Father's Day from, your New Year's from. That's also part of the winter solstice. Then that's what you get your Valentine's Day from. They adding these other things and they're incorporating them together. They match these things together, which is off. Right? It's gonna make you even more bugged out. That's basically what it's saying. It says the rent is made worse. So when you attack something that's wicked, especially something that's righteous, right, you're gonna be bugged out. And that's what you have here, a whole bunch of bugged out people. Grown behind men dressing up in Grinch costumes, right? Grown behind men looking crazy. Right? Then you got some of our people out here got their little kids sitting on a white creepy old man's lap. Right? Madness. The baby crying, right? You gotta see the whole scene. Right? The baby crying. And they saying, hey, hold still for Santa, man. Pure madness. Right? So let's get this. Says, neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. So you can't go and mix in doctrines and ideologies. You can't go and do that, right? The Lord is not dealing with that. Okay, so when you think about how we coming on this on Christmas, it's nothing but syncretism, right? All these things rooted in what? Wickedness, right? That's what it is. So let's go back to what we had cooking up. We had something cooking up. Let me see what I had. All right. Well, hold on. Yeah, here it is right quick. So just to show y'all again, just some more information, right, on this Christmas. Christmas is about Tammuz. The tradition of Christmas season can be traced back to the celebration of the winter solstice, right? It is when the days start to become longer as the sun appears to rise higher, right, in the northern hemisphere. In the occult world of ancient Babylon, this was a time to celebrate the return of the sun, symbolic of the reincarnation of Nimrod's son Tammuz. So there you have it, man. Right? There you have it. The Lord is not dealing with that. Right? So let's do this. Let's go to this. Let's go to this precept. Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4. So what should we be doing, right? In this very present time, right, you got you got feast dedication going on, right? Just had a new moon. You got a lot of things that you could be doing in the realms of righteousness instead of indulging in Christmas, man. So let's go to it. Right? Let's go to it. Deuteronomy 4:6. It says, keep therefore and do them, that this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations. So as Israelites, God's chosen people, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we need to be keeping laws, statutes, commandments, not participating in Christmas, right? Not to participating in paganism, but simply be serving the Most High God and keeping his commandments, right? We should hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people, right? So this is our wisdom amongst the nation, is keeping the high holy days, right? Keeping Passover, right? Keeping feast of dedication, keeping feast of tabernacles, keeping Pentecost, right? So forth and so forth. These are the actions that we should do, right? That's what we should be doing, right? Not got a dang Christmas tree in our house, talking about some Merry Christmas. Madness, right? So, I want to kind of bring that out through the spirit, man, and just show our people, that Lord's not really dealing with that, and encourage our people to go do your history, go do your homework, man, and understand again that Lord's not dealing with that. Repent, come back to the Most High, and Lord willing, that was edifying through the spirit. We want to give our honor and glory to Yahweh Shemel Shai, big brothers and sisters, a mighty week through the spirit. Shalom.